Hey, Hunters, Halozu here for a new look at Unearthed Arcana stuff. So this is the Villainous Options update. So they have updated the original Villainous Options, or rather three of them. In the first one, I do have that ready. Not sure what happened to Pestilence Domain Cleric. There's not much mention of it. It had some issues, and I don't know if it made it. Like, it's not clear what happened to it. So its absence is conspicuous. There is no mentions of it here. So it's possible that they're roughly happy, or like they know what they need to do with it and they're not giving it a second chance. Or they've decided, yeah, let's not do it. Uh, Similar to Hexblade, which fortunately got scrapped. Hopefully forever and never rears its ugly head again. But here with Plague Domain, I don't know what's going to happen. It seems like it's just gone. I don't know. But that means we've got Circle of the Titan, Hell Knight, and Demonic Sorcery, as well as some Origin and Epic Boon feats. So we shall see those instead. So Circle of the Titan starts off with their spells, which I don't even know if this changed. Okay, so Lungstrider is gone, which honestly, in large slash reduce, it makes more sense that you have it. Thaumaturgy is still not a great option to have, and Thunderwave, I feel like mechanically worse. It's not a great spell to have. Like, I guess it's like, oh, you're doing a big roar attack or something. Due to the nature of the forms, though, I don't think it makes as much sense to have Thunderwave here. I think personally, I would have liked Healing Word as a kind of similar but different aspect to it, or either that or maybe False Life, as a way like you can get temporary hit points, but you can't. Yeah, I don't know. But spells roughly similar. We get Fire Shield instead of Stone Skin, but Fear and Destructive Wave are still here, which makes sense. And Thaumaturgy is still here, which it's not great, honestly. I kind of feel like that one could be scrapped. Or at least give us like Thorn Whip instead as like a second one if we're gonna keep it. Because right now it's like, oh cool, a utility cantrip that isn't really that exciting. It's the best of them, but still thaumaturgy rather than something useful. Especially because these are spells you're supposed to be able to cast in Titan form. Speaking of which, Titan form, unsurprisingly, hasn't really changed much at its default. So, okay. So the first major change we will notice is you see here 2 times Druid level temporary HP when you get it, enter it, and now it's 4 times. So a lot more, and that is certainly welcome, as before you were not that tough. Also, your armor class is much higher, as the base is now, at least for Behemoth, 13 plus wisdom, and they're all 13 plus wisdom. So you do get a lot more toughness out of it this time around, which, great. So Behemoth, you get Siege Monster as a passive, which, fair. They lost Rampager, I think actually looking at it, I think they all lost their 10th level abilities. So, oh, nope, it's just moved. Okay. So you do have some stuff moved around. Okay. So Behemoth. So most of it is similar. You still get the Rend, which is D8, plus with slashing damage, and it increases at levels 6 and 12. You get multi-attack. You do not need this. Honestly, you don't need both multi-attack in this. The multi-attack, either cut the multi-attack or the die scaling. At least the first one. I feel like 2d8 twice at 12th level, it's alright. Also, why is it 12th level? Is it... Like, that's a weird one, where it's like, so levels 6 and 12 is when it upgrades. That's weird. It's not like 14th level or something. No, it's 12th. So I think having either... And I think personally, I'd suggest maybe going with just the increasing damage dice, as usually that's how it works anyway. Or actually, no, correct that. I would focus just on the multi-attack because you get natural die scaling through Elemental Strike. So it's kind of weird to have scaling dice on this too. I don't know. It's kind of odd. I don't think they need more dice. Maybe scale it to D10 and then D12. I don't think it needs this if you're going to get multi-attack and Elemental Strike. Incandescent Breath, meanwhile, it's pretty much the same. Though we now have Rampager, which lets you move up to half your speed, or shift half your speed. And if you enter the space of an enemy that's at least 2 sizes smaller than you, it has to make a spell saving throw against the spell save DC, or be knocked prone, or if it's already prone, take D10 bludgeoning damage per spell slot rank. So essentially, you just get a charge attack where you can charge through and over prone enemies. So, not terrible. Though I think I'd have it always do damage, where it's like, it's D6 damage per slot rank and knocked prone, or it's D10 damage per slot rank if they're already prone. So you do get the damage bonus for knocking them prone first, but it still works as it normally would. Then Leviathan. Honestly, this one kind of sucks because they don't get a spell, which is actually very weird when we look at it, where it's like, why don't they have a spell? Granted, the one they did have wasn't that great. It was Ink Cloud, where it's like you do this Ink Cloud, bam. It heavily obscures the area, but that's all it did. So now we instead get Toxic Deluge, which is kind of a... So you still get this, but it's now like a spell effect. So basically you expend a spell slot, and each creature in a 10-foot emanation around you has to make con save or take 2d4 poison damage per slot rank, which that actually hits like a truck for an AoE. That's kind of nasty scaling. Granted, the Behemoth's Incandescent Breath has a ridiculous 2d10 scaling, which Why? Why is that 2d10? I should probably be 1d12 per slot rank, honestly, and it would still be good. Like, it's already the best. It doesn't need to be any better than that. So this one being 2d4, I think, is fine. Has decent consistency, and it's an AoE that actually can hit stuff. And it also poisons. So yeah, that is a nasty one, if it actually matters. Unfortunately, it does run into the poison problem, but I mean, that's kind of the problem it had before, except this one now scales, and it is not a constant effect, which I think is at least nice. But it is kind of unusual that this doesn't have any spell ability when the other two do get one. And it's weird that, like, Behemoth gets two, but you don't, the other two don't, but Leviathan doesn't even start with one, which is bleh, not great. Insect, meanwhile, its utility is not great until 10th level, but it does have the energizing pollen ability, and you'll notice their damage is always the same. However, the type is different. So there is that as a unique benefit you can capitalize on, as occasionally enemies will have resistances or vulnerabilities to certain types. So it is nice to see that it's like, oh, here's slashing, bludgeoning, or piercing. So there is that choice. But for the insect, you get to have energizing pollen, move up to half your speed without provoking opportunity attacks, and when you move within 5 feet of another creature, you give them 2d6 HP back per slot rank. So it's basically it's actually very good. Like, really good. Before, I don't think it was that great because, yeah, because it was like 2d8 plus, it didn't scale well, and you had to divide the healing. This one just does a lot of healing. I am concerned that maybe it should not be 2d6 per slot rank. That does seem like a lot for this. This is a very powerful AoE heal. You do have to move next to people, but, like, this lets you move, and I guess it is a standard action, but it's like you're getting to move, like, 20 feet with this? So, this is definitely quite powerful. Now, do note this cannot self-heal, which honestly feels like you would be the one to need the healing the most, yet you can only heal other people. So this one kind of ends up in a weird place of, I'm not sure if this should go this direction, but it's good. So the Titan forms, I think Behemoth and Insectoid I like a bit more, and I do like the base stat changes to be actually fair. Leviathan, I genuinely don't know why they didn't give this a spell ability at first, at the start. It really should have it. As I also think maybe Insectoid needs a second one as well. Because Flyby, it's not that big of a deal. It's useful, but you're not really going to get as much out of it compared to what, like, Rampager and Toxic Deluge can give you. Now, as for the other abilities, 6th level, we get Dire Impact, so you can change the damage type of your attack to be Elemental. Okay. Nice to get around resistances, so there's that. And maybe exploit vulnerabilities. Then you also get Shockwave, which once per turn, if you move at least half your speed, you can create a Shockwave in 10 feet of you that knocks people prone. I think this is really cool as a way to just like, oh, hey, you're going to move and then knock people prone. As like your footsteps are literally doing it. And then this is certainly much better than the previous one where it was like, oh, as part of entering Titan form or as a bonus action while expending a spell slot. It's not great. So I do like this version of Shockwave a bit more, as it genuinely plays into the flavor even better while also being mechanically better as a, hey, you want to move around because you knock people prone, and then in Behemoth you can run over them. So that's pretty fun. Primal Havoc. Level 10, you can become huge. Whoop-de-doo, Toughened Hide. What the F is this ability? When you assume huge or larger Titan form, you spend a spell slot to give the form extra AC equal to half the expended spell rank. Rounded up. This sucks. You don't need extra AC that much. It's just a lot to invest in. It's one of those, I don't know if I'd ever want to use a third rank spell slot just to get +2 AC from this. It's kind of extreme for what you get out of it, where the cost is just a bit too high. You're always going to be better off using it on a spell or one of your abilities. So in the previous version, this would have been great. As it is now, it doesn't fit. And I don't think they even had it. Yeah, it's like a totally new thing, and it just doesn't really have a good place. Above it all, while huge or larger, you ignore certain types of difficult terrain. It's a flavor feature. Honestly, I don't. While on paper, 10th level doesn't seem that exciting, it is nice to see that there are actual benefits to it, where it's like Insectoid gets flight, Leviathan gets Toxic Deluge, Behemoth gets Rampager. So I think ultimately Toughened Hide could just be scrapped. Uh, Monstrous Appetite at 14th. You can become Gargantuan. Also, while huge or larger, you can grapple creatures you hit with the Rend. You know, I have one creature grappled, but do note this lets you grapple anything. So, doesn't matter what it is, you can grapple it. Be it an infinitely wide Forgiveth. You can grapple it. Doesn't make any sense, but by the rules, you can grapple it. And then you get Swallow, so while you're Gargantuan, you can choose a larger, smaller creature, and you've grappled. Have to make a strength save or be swallowed, blinded and restrained. Cover from everything outside of you, and it takes Wisdom D12 acid damage at the start of each of your turns. And you have up to Wiz creatures swallowed, and you have to concentrate on it. So pretty much the same ability. I think some of the numbers might have been changed a little bit. Yeah. As the damage is way higher. It is absurdly high. That said, I do think this is actually really good as a way to be like, oh yeah, you actually do want to try and do this. So you can grapple an enemy, swallow them, and then melt them. So, yeah, I think that is definitely a big upgrade. Still a bit like, you're not going to get to use it often, but when you do, it's frightening. Now, I will say, 14th level, one issue I have is that you don't get to use it as much because it does rely on being at least huge to get anything. And you're not always able to do that. Granted, this build, this subclass in general, probably is you're not going to pick this in dungeon crawls, but it would still be nice if there was something at 14th. Maybe this is where a die increase should be. So I was like, okay, well, the die increase is also 14th. Maybe as the only die increase where it's like, okay, 6th rank or 6th level, you get multi-attack, because that kind of fits better with Druid progression anyway. And then 14th level, Rend gets more powerful. I think that would be fine. As it is, it's good. Might be a bit too good at the moment, but then again, Druid is just powerful in general. So it does seem like they did kind of overtune it from this version, where it's like, well, the attacks don't scale that well. Some of their abilities aren't great, so I think it's more of a case of overcorrecting rather than like being irredeemable. Where I think we can meet in the middle and be fine. So the Hell Knight. So Diabolical Gift hasn't really changed much. Get Devil Sight. And I'm pretty sure it's probably identical. Yeah. Actually, no, there is one change. Which is you get either Deception, Performance, or Sleight of Hand. So basically a more manipulation, like charlatan style skill. Which fits. Get Infernal as well, so Super Dark Vision, Infernal, extra skill proficiency. Makes sense. Hellforged Weapon is very similar to how it was before, with an important distinction. You can now choose cold, fire, or necrotic damage. So it is not just fire damage, the subclass. So this is a very nice addition as a way to shake things up and not be all about fire. And give you some much needed variety and versatility. So the Infernal Wound still feels very weird to call this like the Infernal Wound die as a D6. I really think, and honestly think about it, they should just call it a D6. Like say roll a D6 every time. It is a waste of words to say this, because it doesn't even scale at all. Like, if this scaled like to a D8 at some point, okay. I just think, honestly, this doesn't make sense to word it as it is. Now, when you hit a creature with Infernal Wound, or with a Forged Weapon, you can inflict Infernal Wounds, so you immediately do damage equal to the Infernal Wound die, so you deal an extra d6 damage. And at the start of each of its turn, while it has a wound, it takes the damage again until someone heals it, essentially. So basically, it's given a damage over time effect that it can take an action to stop this, so there is that as well. But the point is, someone has to go out of their way to heal them, so that is nice. And you get con uses per short or long rest, so fair. I think. Nothing's restricting it to melee, which is going to be important in a bit. So, advanced wounds. This one is... it is much better. So now, when you roll your Infernal Wound die, you can apply one of the following effects. If you roll a 6, you get the Devil's Luck effect. And you have to wait till the start of your next turn to use this feature again. So basically, I feel like this should only be applied on hitting with the Infernal Weapon, maybe. Though I guess you could also, like, have this trigger off of a wound if you haven't hit anyone new with it, or don't really care to hit anyone new with it. So it's, eh. But we got the effects, which are Purulence of Minaros, which just Explosion of Acid. Each enemy in 5-foot emanation takes Infernal Wound die d6 acid damage. And the target is also poisoned, which, this one ends up being so weird as a result, because first off, this doesn't match the base ability's damage. So, essentially, it's doing like, oh, the main target takes cold fire and necrotic damage, but then suddenly the enemies around it take acid damage? That's weird. And then it poisons them. It's not doing poison damage, yet it's still poisoning them. Granted, I do appreciate that the damage type is definitely better than having poison. Though I feel like this one should maybe be, oh, they all take, like, because I don't know, it just feels out of place that it's like, oh yeah, here's an acid ability when the default doesn't do acid damage. The Devil's Luck for this, though, is -1 AC, which is, very good, except for the fact that the main target does not take acid damage. Thus, it's only the creatures around it that get this penalty. Okay, that one's, not exactly great. I feel like this should just be... this could be retooled a little bit to be like... no, I guess I'll finish this. So Rupture of Cania is next. It just deals extra d6 force damage to the main target. So, a flat damage bonus... or actually, no, it's just con mod. So, flat damage bonus. Okay. Not quite as exciting. Or actually, no, they're both con damage. But basically, yeah. Like, they're both extra damage, but this one is to the target instead, and it's force. This one feels a bit more reasonable, just because, oh, it's not like, well, why is this guy taking acid damage, but this guy is taking fire damage? There's none of that. It's like, oh, well, he's taking both. And the Devil's Luck effect is they have to subtract a d6 from their next saving throw. Also nice. A bit more powerful, ultimately, as... and ironically, I do feel like the effect would be better as like, oh, this gives a saving throw penalty in an area, when a lot of area attacks are saving throw based. So there's more use for having an AoE, like, debilitate, whereas single target AC reduction makes a lot more sense. So these kind of end up in a weird place of neither matches the default damage types you care about. And both of them feel like they have reversed effects where I'd rather the AoE penalizes saves and then the single target penalizes AC. But it's all right. The ideas make sense. Like, yeah, acid would reduce armor. Yeah, like the arcane one would reduce resistance to magic. But mechanically, they're flipped. And then Stygian Gangrene, the only one that actually makes sense. The main target takes extra cold damage, and it can't take reactions till the start of its next turn. Yeah, note that this says reactions, not opportunity attacks, reactions. This is kind of out of place where it's like, I thought you weren't doing this much anymore. Granted, limited usability, so well, it's not even that limited use because it's on a dot. So this feels very powerful for where you're getting it from. Also, this is just way better than doing Rupture of Cania. It's not great. And it's like, oh yeah, extra cold damage equal to con mod, and then can't tank reactions, and Devil's Luck is speed is halved. I feel like maybe the two effects should be reversed, where the default is the slow, and then the Devil's Luck is no reactions. Either that or maybe move the no reactions to like change the Devil's Luck to just be an improved slow, or like maybe it's like, oh, it slows or immobilizes. That might be good, actually, thinking about it. Is, oh, lucky? Okay, it's immobilized instead of slowed. That'd be good. But as it stands, I think there's just a bunch of weirdness with this. Personally, I'd prefer if they're gonna go with, oh, Hellfire weapons are cold fire necrotic, have these be cold fire necrotic, or cold fire necrotic, maybe. That way, and switch the secondary effects of these two just as a, okay, yeah, this one, or the Devil Lux of these two, just as, okay, single target penalizes AC, multi-target penalizes saves. And also buff the AC penalty, because it's kind of ridiculous. It's like, oh, 1d6 minus 1d6 from a saving throw versus just flat minus 1 AC. Not great. And then Stygian Gangrene, maybe swap its, like, give the reaction shut down to Rupture of Cania, while it gets the speed halved and immobilized. Just to make it a bit more fair and not as absurd. Also at 7th, we get Infernal Equipment, which, when we finish a short or long rest, you get to choose one of your 3 damage types, and while wearing heavy armor or using a shield, rip ranged builds, you have resistance to the type chosen. And Unholy Power, which, why do you get this here? You treat 1s as a 6 at 7th level? Unholy Power should probably be at 10th level. Just saying. Like, at least. It should not be at 7th, because it means there's like a third of the time you're triggering Devil's Luck, which I don't think is intended. But, I mean, granted, it's still nice to be like, oh, you don't ever roll 1 damage, which is awesome. Then Hellfire Surge. When you use Action Surge while holding a Hellforged weapon, make a 20-foot emanation, blasting enemies that take infernal wounds. So, this just doesn't feel great. It's like, oh, if they're like, any infernal wounds do more damage when you action surge. Doesn't feel great. I'm pretty sure it was even like, Yeah. Like, it was a big explosion around you. Sorry, I had to sneeze. This is just... bleh. It's not great. They really screwed this one up. I feel like this should have been like, oh, you, like, launch bursts of dark energy, like, I don't know, con enemies in 30 feet of you, and they each take, like, 2 rolls of infernal wound damage if they fail a dex save. Because this, just slightly increasing infernal wound damage for a turn is not good. Devil's Misfortune: when a creature hits you with attack roll, take a reaction to roll infernal wound die, reduce the damage taken by that number. On a roll of 6, roll it again, and you can do that up to 3 times. Have up to 3 rolls. So you can get 2 rolls of 2 extra rolls. And if the attack was a crit, it becomes a normal hit. So that alone is really good. The damage reduction part is not great most of the time, because reducing the damage by 1d6 isn't great. Granted, you have a one third of the time you're rolling a 6, and thus getting more dice. So there is at least that. I don't know. Once again, I don't feel like it's the best. And I'm not sure. Like, maybe this should be moved down? Or, like, combined with something else? I don't know. Level 18, though, Infernal Bargain. When you roll a 6 on your Infernal Wound die 3 or more times before the start of your next turn, which isn't easy, given, I guess, between the reaction, the hit, damage over time, and reaction, you can trigger it somewhat consistently. You get Heroic Inspiration, and you can basically use it to penalize d20 rolls instead of just buffing yours. So, or actually, this is kind of even weirder because you're basically using it to let other people re-roll the d20. Now, this is only d20. This isn't any die roll, which somewhat fair. But if the number rolled causes them to succeed, you get an Indomitable or Second Wind back. You know what you're getting. It's Indomitable, and it's like, unless you really need the Second Wind, why would you ever not take Indomitable uses? Granted, I can see situations where it's like, okay, I really need a Second Wind in a hard fight. So it's good to have in your back pocket, but most of the time you're picking Indomitable, because that normally does not come back. And if they fail the d20 test, you take 3d6 plus fighter level damage. It's not great. I would probably just leave it at the 3d6. I don't know. This one is... it's still worded weirdly. Granted, we're looking at something hilarious. We'll get into later, but... it's... I think it's in a better place. I definitely prefer this advanced wounds. It still has some weirdness with the damage types and wounds not... advanced wounds not matching up well. It does peter off a little after 7th level, but at least it has features. That's an improvement over some. Battle Master! Anyway, so overall, I think it's better. Now, it does not get as big of an upgrade as Demonic Sorcery. Granted, it was far and away the worst option in the previous version because of the classic squishy caster somehow turned into melee build with 0 defensive upgrades. So let's start here at Abyssal Rupture. When you use innate sorcery, you get to create a rupture that is centered on a point in 30 feet of you. It's 10-foot radius sphere. And when you activate innate sorcery and as a bonus action while it's active, choose an option. And while it persists, you move the sphere 30 feet to anywhere else in 30 feet of you at the start of each of your turns. So you do still have to be somewhat close. However, this does give you like a better reach, as you don't have to be right next to them. And you can actually kind of use this to keep enemies back away from you. So Terrifying Screams is a simple just whiz save or take 1d4 psychic damage. It's not great, and looking at it, why does this not scale at all? I know it's like, it's a bonus action, but all or nothing 1d4? Ugh, it's not great. And then we get Demonic Lash, which definitely takes the cake of why is this worded so bad? This is the dumbest sounding ability. Uh, yeah, it is, oh boy. So, make a melee spell attack against target in 5 feet of the rupture. On a hit, it takes 1d8 slashing damage, and if it's large or smaller, you pull it up to 10 feet towards the center of the sphere. This is the dumbest sounding ability of them all. You're attacking something with 5-foot reach, yet it's pulling something 10 feet? What? Well, in their defense, this does actually work. This is not a accursed shield level idiocy. This is, oh, it actually does work. It just sounds stupid. So here, so basically what happens is you can hit someone like in 15 feet in like a 15-foot radius rather than 10-foot radius, and it will pull them into the center. So it's like if we have, like, let's say square one is RU, square two is PT, then we got UR over here is square three. So our center point is like E. So it'll go, it can reach out to grab someone from over here and then pull them into over here. So it's weird, but it does actually make sense when you actually look at it all. This should definitely be worded within 15 feet of the center to not sound stupid. Because currently it's really up there in the dumbest sounding abilities. It's bad. Alright, so ultimately, though, this is as stupid as Demonic Lash sounds. It is certainly in actual practice infinitely better than the previous version of, yeah, pulling enemies closer to you as a squishy sorcerer and doing very piddly damage too. So, yeah, overall, this is vast improvement. It is certainly better than it was. Now then, demonic spells. Wow, this changed a lot. For one, we have Bane and Dissonant Whispers now. So this unironically changed entirely. Looking at it, there are only 2 spells shared between versions. Now, I actually did like the previous version, though I will say this one is more exciting and better. And I do think it does a few things good, though I did like the utility focused list on the previous version. Though, as I said with that version, why is a demonic abyssal sorcerer getting a bunch of utility spells? It feels like they would have some destructive ones, and well, they've got it. You will note that most of these are actually off list spells, which is really nice to see, as before you did have a few on list spells. Granted, it is worth noting that the nature of Sorcerer means their spell list is usually a bit tighter, so you didn't always have space for Detect Magic or Dispel Magic. So it worked, but this is also good in a different way of, hey, here's some good spells that you don't normally get as Sorcerer. In Bane, Dissonant Whispers, Spike Growth, it's not great, honestly. That spell on... Well, granted, you do have ways to kind of abuse it, which is, yeah, it's actually kind of frightening, actually, now that I think about it, of, Demonic Lash is actually really good when combined with Spike Growth, and Web, so you got some good options. Nothing incredible here, but it's nice. And then we now get Bestow Curse instead of Gaseous Form, which, much better. Yeah, yep. Definitely prefer having Bestow Curse as a way to play into the Dark Sorcerer theme. Don't really know why they could turn into gas before. And of course, Dispel Magic as a, your spell is gone. And just nice to have as a sorcerer is, yeah, you don't normally get to take it, so having it for free, definitely nice. Then you get Giant Insect, which is... That one, honestly, I'll be honest, I don't know why they get that. I feel like Confusion actually made a bit more sense as, like, causing chaos and stuff. Giant Insect is kind of like, wait, what? You get that? Huh. Hallucinatory Terrain. Neat spell to have in your back pocket if you want it. Doesn't do anything amazing, but you get access to it. Modify Memory. I'm not sure why they have it, and but I will say this one does once again feel like, why'd this one change? It feels like Hallow would be something that they would have, as, like, due to their abyssal heritage, they can desecrate areas. But oh well. Modify Memories, once again, it's nice to have, as, like, you don't normally get to take that as a sorcerer, but I don't know why you would take it. I don't know. It feels a little out of place. Contact Other Plane, though, yeah, that would make sense. So overall, it's still good. I think they're both good, about on par with each other. This one, I think it fits a bit better at first, but later I think Giant Insect, I feel like, could be reverted, but I think as it is, both are fine. They're just good for different reasons. 6th level, Abyssal Realm. So when you spend at least 1 sorcery point as part of a magic action or bonus action, pull influence from the abyss, make a 10-foot emanation around you, or fill the sphere of your abyssal rupture with this. So basically, this is actually usable at all. Once again, thank you, Wizards. This is now actually usable in practice. So we've got Gaping Maw's Frenzy. Designate a horizontal direction. If creatures fail a Charisma save, they must use as much movement as possible to move in that direction at the start of its next turn. So, that one definitely quite good, even if you do center it on yourself as a sort of get away from me. So that's nice. Maze of Azatar. You become invisible against the target. So, okay. And then Slime Pit's Haze is a con save, or be charmed or poisoned. Yeah, I don't know why this one... that one seems a bit weird. But, hey. Now, I will say these are all nice as, like, ways to be like, oh, I'm gonna, like, throw out an effect. And these are nice defensively or offensively with your Rupture, so it is nice to see this be consistently like, oh yeah, if you're using this around you, you're consistently getting a good defensive benefit, unlike before, where it was completely random and only centered on you. Though I do miss the damage effects, so I think it doesn't feel as destructive, which is a loss, but I think the way it's used is better, and the way you choose the effect is better. I'm not sold on the effects themselves, but I do like them consistently being defensive for it. Then 14th level, you get Abyssal Conduit, so we get Rupture Expansion, where Abyssal Rupture is now a 30-foot radius sphere of difficult terrain? What? Why is this suddenly a 30-foot radius sphere? Like, if it was a 20-foot radius, that would make sense, but 30? Why is it tripling in size? That is absurd. Also note, this does not extend the range it can be thrown out, meaning you are always right next to the Rupture. Kind of weird. Especially if you Terrifying Screams, which, yeah, this could definitely be shortened down to only extending it to 20 feet, as that sounds a lot more reasonable. And then have it as 30 feet is absurd. And then also let it be like a bit further out. So it's like, oh, now it can be 60 feet out. Or maybe just buff the default range to 60 feet. That'd be nice too. Fiendish Servant, you get Summon Fiend for free as a spell known. And you can modify it so it doesn't require concentration. It only lasts 1 minute when you do it, and you have to summon a demon. And the Fiend has advantage on attack rolls while in your Abyssal Rupture. Do note, however, you cannot use Terrifying Screams, because that triggers hits everything. Granted, it's not much damage, but it is kind of weird that it's not an ally-friendly radius, yet it wants to be inside it. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Abyssal Explosion, meanwhile. Basically, you create a 30-foot radius sphere explosion of abyssal energy. Anything that is not a fiend takes 8d6 force damage, and it's incapacitated. And you can't do it again until you finish a long rest. or spend 7 sorcery points to do it again. I'm not a fan of the non-fiend part, because it does seem like, for one, it would be nice to be able to be like, oh, you're turning the power of hell against itself. Like, you're touched by the power of the abyss, yet you're fighting against the demons. It removes that possibility, just as it also removes the possibility of, well, because of your abyssal heritage, you're being attacked by devils and stuff and can use this. So I would have it be optional to not target fiends, where it's like, no, you can target fiends if you want to. Also, what's the range on this? It doesn't say where this is from. It doesn't say. I would assume it's in 30 feet of you, or it's because it's not emanation, so it's not supposed to be from you. I don't know. This one is missing important wording. This has to be like in 60 feet of you. This one definitely needs a rewrite. Granted, I understand that this has ended up in a weird place, so there is that at least. So it needs some work. Overall, though, my review of it, and it is nice to see that the Summon Fiend has been moved up. The new ability, though, is not great. But I will say, overall, Demonic Sorcery is the most upgraded by far. This is... It needs some work with the... It needs some proofreading, badly. However, this one does actually... Even with that, it is still the most... It is a massive upgrade. It's not even funny. And with that, we shall leave it for this video. So that is the Villainous Subclasses update. So without further ado, I will see y'all next time when I cover the feats in this, in literally the next video coming out about the same time. Same day, at least.